Not, I'll drive and you talk.
I got you. All right, here we go, guys. We're ready to rock and roll. So, one big fire. So, I'm going to briefly kind of give you kind of a little bit of a backstory for those of you who don't know me, just so we can be all on the same page. But what I did was I broke down really the top three success pillars of top producing agents. And that's what I really wanted to cover here today to get you excited about all the sessions that you're going to be sharing. Mercifully brief introduction. Been in business 23 years in the real estate industry. It creeps up on you, man. I'm on my third decade. So my best year, I sold 531 homes, over 4,300 homes I've sold in my career. And formerly was number 2 in the world for Coldwell Banker for a number of years, and then started a coaching and training organization that trained and coached top agents from around the country. And in 2004, started a company called Radio and Television Experts with a friend of mine, Matt Wagner, that actually did radio and TV for real estate agents all around the country. So we've helped some of the top agents. If you were to go into just about any market in the country and look at who is the top agent in that marketplace, and you survey the top 10, probably, I'm going to say probably 2 or 3 of them in every single market in the country probably has either been coached by us or was a part of one of our companies that we had that helped them the big successful business. And so that's kind of my backstory. And one of the things that really led to my success and me and seeing the success of other people you heard this already, right? You heard everyone on the panel and how many of them talked about the benefit. Marcy Williams talked about the benefit of flying out to other people's offices and looking what they're doing and looking under the hood of their business, going back and duplicating that in their own business. And my office was actually one of the offices that they came out and visited. They actually came out to Lawton, Oklahoma and visited my office. And we did the same thing. I went and visited their office. I visited other people's offices and literally used to fly around the country. And the same people, I would always see the same people at these events. And we started to kind of run in the same circles. And so what we all knew is we enjoyed spending time around each other because we were all bigger thinkers and we were all trying to grow a successful business, and being around like-minded people is such a huge benefit. And we all have that benefit here at EXP. But we wanted to be in business together, but we never knew how. And so when we started the move over to EXP, we claimed I guess, the one big fire, as that's what this is. It's how do we put our fires together and make one big fire? And it would have never worked before because we would have never been able to settle on what the name of our business would have been, and we'd all joined together, and it would have never made sense. But it's such a blessing to be in business with all of you and be in business all together, and we have one big fire instead of our little fires that we're burning individually. And so EXP is that one big fire, and the benefit today is you're going to get to go in and listen to what we used to fly around the country all over the place to learn from all these top agents around the country. You get direct access to that throughout the entire day today, and plug into these sessions where people that are actually doing what it is that you want to learn, they're out there doing it, and they're going to show you exactly how they're doing it. And I've kind of been known to say this because this is who I am, is I'm not the smartest kid in class, but I always sit next to them. And that's really what you have to do, is pay attention to what people are doing to be successful and just be a good copycatter. My mentor, Jay Abraham, used to joke. He didn't joke. I always joke. I always joked that me and Mike Reese, my business partner, we used to go copycatter number 1. This is copycatter number 2. Over here, read me. Got a good idea over here. This is pretty good stuff. You need to check it out. And we would always jokingly, talk about being a good copycatters. We were just really good at copying. And Jay Abraham used to get really upset with me. He said, "You're devaluing what it is that you're doing. You're modeling success." And that's really one of the number 1 principles to success. And so what is your definition of success? When it comes down to success, I looked it up in the Merriam-Webster dictionary. I think everyone has a different version of what success may be, but it says a degree or measure of succeeding, favorable or desired outcome, also the attainment of wealth, favor, or fame. And that may or may not be the definition that you would use. But one thing that all of the great people in the world that have been highly, highly successful all agree on one thing. Success only comes by persevering through failure. You have to push the pendulum of life to failure before it will ever swing to success, as Darren Hardy says. And the more that you push to failure, the more that it will eventually swing back to success. And that's never been more true for anything that I've ever done in my life. Real estate was absolutely fail. You have to fail in order to move forward. And so embrace the struggle, fall in love with the process, and just know that if you're failing, if you're not failing, if you're comfortable right now, then you're not growing, and you're not growing and getting better. And so that's the key to success in real estate, is to just continuously fail forward, pick yourself back up, and keep moving forward. And that's where you're going to find success. The most successful people, the people that you saw on stage, they have all failed massively, and that's why they're successful. And so always remember that, and don't get discouraged. And there is no secret to success. The secret to success is do the work, okay? There's not going to be a magic pill I'm going to share with you. There's not going to be an easy button for success. If you want to be successful, you absolutely have to do the work. So, and if you aren't where you want to be in your business right now, then you simply haven't learned something yet. That's all it is. It's something there's something you can learn that would change that. And once you kind of embrace the fact that, hey, I'm just not where I want to be in my business. What is it that I haven't learned yet? And figure out what it is that you need to learn, and go learn that, right? And so this is a pretty impressive statistic. 95% of all the transactions are done by 5% of the real estate agents. I'll say that again. 95% of all the real estate transactions are done by 5% of the real estate agents. And so what I wanted to unpack today was, what are the things that make that 5%? What is it that made them so successful? So something you can duplicate, something that you can kind of grab a hold of and take and say, okay, these are the things where I've got to get better if I want to be one of the 5% that's doing the majority of the business. And I'll tell you this, it's top agents. It's not because they write better contracts, is it? No, I don't think so. It's not because they're better at showing houses than you are. It's not because they're better at putting signs on the ground. There's none of those things is what makes an agent one of the top agents. There are three things that make a difference, and we'll start with the first one, and it's the biggest one. They are master marketers. They understand that they are not in the business of selling real estate. They are in the business of marketing. They understand also that if your business is, let me explain this. Every agent I've ever talked to, and they come to me, and this may be you. If this is you, I want you to let me know if this is where your business is at. If your business is coming from unpredictable sources, you will never have a predictable business. I'll say it again. That's a writer downer. If your business is coming from unpredictable sources, you will never have a predictable business. If your business feels like it's a roller coaster and some months are good, some months are bad, it may be because you have unpredictable sources. If you don't know where your next deal is coming from, then it's because you don't have leads, sources that are very, whether it's coming from referrals or it's coming from your past clients and repeat business, and all that business is great, but you can't predict it, and you're not in control of it, right? And so that's an important thing that you have to understand. Is you want to have a predictable business, then you're going to have to learn how to spend money in marketing to acquire a customer. And so the main thing that they know how to do is they can spend $500 and turn that into 10 grand. It's pretty amazing. In some cases, you could probably turn $100 into 10 grand. And so, let's look at where, think about how amazing real estate is, right? So you can invest your money in a whole bunch of different places. I pulled this up as just typical return on investment from different vehicles that you could put your money in. 2% for a high yield savings account, the S&P 500 index 9.8% annually, residential real estate 10.6%, commercial real estate 9.5%. Those are the types of return on investment you can get if you put your money into any of those vehicles. And if any of you are putting your money into those vehicles, that's fine. But look at what the return on investment is you invested in yourself, in your business. So you put $500 into marketing and into your real estate business. And if you get I don't know what your average, you do your own math, right? But $10,000 is about the average commission, kind of, for at least where I'm at here in Dallas, Texas. What is the return on that investment? That's 1,900%. Who can get those kind of returns, right? You can, if you learn the skill of marketing. If you learn the skill of marketing and how to acquire, and I'm not saying learn the skill of marketing, give Realtor.com your money, give Zillow your money. Nothing wrong with those lead sources. But you're basically paying them to do the arbitrage on lead generation, and it's not a skill that you're learning. You want to learn the skill of how to acquire your customer yourself without needing to depend on any of these other lead sources that could change tomorrow, right? So that's a really important skill that you want to learn. So invest. I want you to think about your business differently. I want you to invest in yourself, invest in your business. And if you do this, you will find that every single person that was up on stage, the most successful people, have all become master marketers. All learn that skill. And so pay attention to the things that they're doing when it comes to marketing. Look at your top competition in your marketplace and see what are they doing differently. What are they doing successfully that I'm not doing? I think what you're going to see a lot is that they're spending money in marketing. They're not afraid to invest in their business because the return on that investment is so great. And so that I'm getting some questions that are coming through here, which is awesome. And I will come back and answer all of those as we get towards the end of this for as long as I'm able to in here. But that ROI calculator, I just Googled it. It's just an ROI calculator. And I wanted to get the exact ROI, which just so I didn't want to give a false number, so I just used that calculator I found. If you Google ROI calculator, I think that's where that came from. There's a website for it. Okay, so all right, so here's what to and I can't give. Go ahead. Talking to myself. Is anybody else hearing an echo? Okay, it's gone. All right. I'm not going to be able to do like a full marketing lesson today and teach you guys marketing. I can tell you I spent lots of years and years and years and years of studying the subject of marketing and how to acquire a customer. And there's so many pieces to it that there's no way I could do it in this session. But I want you to just start just with a simple framework to understand how marketing works. The first thing is, who is the target market? Who is it that you're going to be marketing to? Is it a buyer? Is it a seller? Is it a first-time buyer? Is it a empty nester? Understanding who it is that you're talking to. Somebody that's in the military, what's their background? Like, your target market is understanding. It's not just, I mean, you can be very broad and say it's a buyer or it's a seller, but in most cases, if you're doing marketing, you want to speak specifically to the person it's most relevant. Are they moving up? Are they moving into town from out of town? Are they looking at new construction? What do they have kids? Understand the persona of the person that you're trying to talk to, because in marketing, all you're trying to convey to that person what your value proposition is in order to help them accomplish their goal. That's really all marketing is. And so the next piece of the puzzle is understanding traffic. Where are you going to find them? Where are these people, and how are you going to put your marketing or advertisement in front of them in order for them to come to your website? And the next is the offer. What is the bait that you're going to use to attract them? And this is probably the most underutilized thing I see in real estate. Real estate agents not having offers. If you're doing an open house, what is your offer to every single person that comes in the house? If you don't have an offer, something of value to offer, how are you expected to get them to say yes to you, right? So every single thing that you're doing you should have an offer. What is that offer for a seller to do business with you above doing business with somebody else? What is the offer that you have to a buyer to do business with you above doing anything else? If you can't articulate clearly a value proposition of why someone should do business with you above doing business with somebody else, then you're going to have to talk to a whole lot more people before you're ever going to get somebody to do business with you. And then from a marketing perspective, that means you're going to spend a whole lot more money before you're ever going to actually get any return on that investment. And the last one's the funnel, is how are you going to convert them into a client? What is the process that you're going to use to ultimately, the sales process you're going to use to convert them over to a client? So I'm going to give you an example. You're probably going to want to write this down, and I talk fast, so these are kind of long. So I want you to just get the basic gist of it. Is if I have a buyer lead that I generated somehow through marketing, I am going to say on the phone. What I say on the phone is going to be the most important thing. It's the headline. It's the main thing that you say. We have a proven, repeatable system that's backed by market research to save you thousands to tens of thousands across the home buying process. Would you like for me to show you how we do that? Now, I don't know what everybody is saying when they get a buyer on the phone, but that is a reason why that buyer should run red lights to meet with me and buy a home from me and let me represent them. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's not a reason for, I didn't use selection. I didn't use, I've got a free list of homes. That's the old school script everybody's taught for the last 20 years since I've been in business. That is a reason why someone should do business with you above doing business with somebody else. Does that make sense? You want to have some reason. And again, I think what most of you do as professionals, and I applaud everybody that's here today, because we all had a choice to be here learning and growing and getting better. And you guys all chose to be here. And that to me is the differentiator. The agents that don't show up to these type of events are the ones that are not trying to grow and get better. So, this is a skill that you should absolutely learn. So having a value proposition that you use to as a reason why, and I bet most of you have a process that you help. Do you help the buyer with finding a lender? Do you help them with getting the best possible loan? Do you guide them through this process and help them with the negotiation of the contract and the negotiation of the closing costs and all of that stuff and all that? You do all these things, right? You have a process. It's just being able to articulate that as a value proposition. And I believe that if you do a good job, you can save a buyer thousands to tens of thousands across the home buying process, no question. And so that's my value proposition if I'm talking to a buyer. Same thing on the sell side. It's a little bit different. Same from the top. We have a proven, repeatable system backed by market research to sell your home for up to 18% more than methods of traditional real estate agents. Would you like for me to show you how we do that? That is a reason why someone should meet with me. Now, before you all freak out and say, how are you going to sell a house for more than 18% more than what a house is worth? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that in any marketplace, there's a top of the market, middle of the market, and there's a bottom of the market. And there are things that we do and a process that we use to get a house exposed to the marketplace to attract the highest possible offer, right? A house can be staged, a house could have professional photography, or a house could be multiple colors and outdated, and the grass is 4 feet tall and it could smell like cat urine. One's going to attract the low offer, one's going to attract the high offer. But it's the 115 variables involved in the home selling process that we manage that determines whether you attract a high offer or a low offer. And so that is what I communicate to a seller in order for them to have a reason to meet with me instead of listing with, yeah, we have a friend down the street that's a real estate agent. And I can tell you that's what people do, right? They choose someone that'll do it for cheaper. And this is another writer downer. In the absence of value, people question price. In the absence of value, people question price. If people are questioning your commission, questioning your value, then they're not seeing the value. You're not making the value visible, what it is you do to earn your commission. So you want to make sure you can articulate your value proposition so they see that you actually have something you do that's more valuable, a process that you use to sell their home for the most amount of money. That is the key. So those are just a couple nuggets I wanted to drop just to give you guys some context for marketing is the most important thing that I could ever teach you. And this is the kind of the foundation, nuts and bolts of it, right? So what's number 2? Oh, and I did add 2 books for you. So, and I'm not, I've read a lot of books. It's surprisingly, if anybody would have, if my school teachers would have been surveyed as to how many books they think I would read in my lifetime, I think they all would have probably said, I don't even know if he can read. So I'm from Lawton, Oklahoma. I'm a country kid, graduated in the top 25 of my class, but there's only 36 of us. So that's where I come from. I didn't read a lot of books until I realized that every problem I've ever tried to solve, somebody wrote a book about it. It's unbelievable. Whatever you're trying to learn, there's lots of people that are really smart that actually wrote books on how to solve that problem. And actually several of my examples today are going to be Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy is one of our mentors. The guy charges $34,000 in one day. He convinced us to pay him that money up front, actually half of that money up front for a day with Dan Kennedy in 2001. And impressively enough, so we think about it, one of the things that Dan Kennedy says, he says amateurs get paid at the end of work and professionals get paid before work begins. Ouch. We get paid at the end, right? So Dan Kennedy taught some amazing principles on how to be positioned as the go-to expert in the marketplace. And the 2 books I recommend from a marketing perspective, if you want to start learning how to do marketing correctly, are Dan Kennedy's No BS Direct Marketing is the first book, and the second one is No BS Trust-Based Marketing. Everything that I've learned about marketing, not everything, but almost everything I've learned about marketing are in those 2 books. And Dan Kennedy's great. He's great at writing. He doesn't use near enough pictures, in my opinion. I'd like to see more pictures in his books, but it's definitely 2 go-to books that I would highly recommend that you add to your library. So number 2, and let me tell you something. I promise you this, it's not that hard. Anybody can do this stuff. I'm telling you, I'm living proof of that. And everybody you heard on stage, the people that are sitting up on stage super successful are all telling you the same thing. Like, this is something anybody can do. This is not something, we don't have some special gift, right? You just have to want it, as Brent Gove said earlier. All right, so what was number 2? All right, what else do they know? What else do these top agents that are doing the 5% of all the business, what else do they know maybe you don't know? You'll never make $1 million doing $1 million a year doing $10 an hour work. This is a huge key to your success. And it's so easy to get caught into this trap where you're just doing it because it's easier to do it instead of delegate it. And you have to move away from that mindset. They understand, these agents all understand leverage. They're highly productive. They're only doing the dollar per hour work that it makes sense for them to do. And so this is a really simple rules of delegation here. If you suck at it, delegate it. If you don't like doing it, delegate it. Except for marketing and sales, don't delegate the things that drive revenue. And until you get to a certain point, you can hire someone to do the work. Like for instance, some people don't like making calls, but I'm afraid to tell you that you're going to have to make calls if you're in real estate. So that's something that you can't really delegate. At a certain point, I made all the calls. I called every physical, every expired, did that for a number of years. And then I decided I wanted to hire someone else to do it so I would never have to do it again, right? But I did make those calls. And so I believe you have to make the calls. You can't delegate it until you've done it. And so, but if you don't like it, other than that, if you don't like doing it, you're probably not very good at it, so delegate it. And if it's not a high dollar activity, I mean, high dollar value per hour, what's the value per hour? And I'll show you a little graph here that'll help you to kind of, I think, see more visually what you're seeing the agents that are on stage doing that will make it more clear. Let's do some math here. So let's say income goal is 250,000 and the annual hours worked 2,000 is a pretty good number. That's like giving you a month off and a bunch of weekends off too. But the value of the work that you have to be doing at all times has to be at least $125 an hour. If you want to make 500,000 and you want to have a two-week vacations and have some weekends off, which is that's at average 2,000 hours, it would be $250 an hour. So if you could pay somebody less than $125 an hour to do that work, it's got to come off your plate. And so you start thinking about some of the things that we do in our business and in our day, right? If like you just track your entire day, you just be more productive, and planning your day is probably the number one thing I could help you with. The thing that I'm an absolute freak about my calendar, and wasn't always that way. I thought I got into real estate so I didn't have to have a calendar, but that's not how it works. Your income is what you do per hour. And so if you're not doing anything productive an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 hours a day, then it's just taking thousands of dollars you're getting paid, right? Like you're not saving anything. You're just basically taking money that you could be making and not making the income you could be making. So this is what we call the 9 box. And the 9 box is just an example of, if you look at the upper right hand is the highest skill work, and the bottom left hand is the low value, low skill, right? So as you go up up to the top, it's the higher value work, and across to the right is the higher skill. So when it comes to the business, the number one thing that you can do that makes the most money is being face to face with the client, and ultimately I would argue that it's face to face with a seller. And here's why. We tracked it. We actually tracked this. Actually, a whole bunch of us tracked it because we all wanted to see what we came up with. We had the average amount of time that we spent with the buyer was 21 hours. 21 hours. The average time that we spent with the seller, this is being pretty, it's a little bit less than this, but 3. Let's say it was just 3, right? So you get a 7 times multiple on working with the seller if you only invest 3 hours with that seller and you spend 21 hours with the average buyer before you have one that buys. So that's a pretty big gap in terms of the time. And so plus listings have babies. Listings, if you have a listing, you ever have a listing that you double-ended? Yeah, you can actually have both sides of the transaction. You'll have people when you have a listing that somebody calls you because that listing, you sold a listing and they saw that you sold it, so they call you. You have somebody that wants to buy that listing that needs to sell a house. So listings have babies. And so the listing side of the business is really the highest leverage activity you can do in your real estate business. But if you're the courier and the receptionist and you're the inside salesperson making the calls and you're the listing coordinator and put all the listings in the MLS, doing all the paperwork, all of that stuff, and you're the closing coordinator, managing all the transactions front to back. If you're doing all of those things, they have to come off your plate at some point. Then if you get them off of your plate, you are going to absolutely start making more money. So and I can't remember who said it on stage earlier, but they said, don't be afraid to hire someone. Like it'll be the best day of your life. The first person you hire, you give them everything that you don't like. Just give them the stuff you don't like doing. Like make a list. Like, pay attention to what you're doing every 15 minutes for the next week. Just write it down in a little journal. Here's what I'm doing. Do you like it or do you not like it? What's the value of that work? And at the end of a week, you're going to be like, holy cow, I don't do a whole lot. It's kind of depressing, but you'll see that you do a lot of stuff that you just shouldn't be doing. And I used to have this mind block about what I could delegate and what I couldn't delegate. Well, you can't ever delegate that. I'll never forget, I was sitting outside of a real estate conference in the hallway, and a couple of top producing agents. I was selling a couple hundred homes a year. And I was between 100 and 200 a year. And it never, ever, ever crossed my mind to ever delegate the closing. Like I was doing more business than that, because I remember one of my problems was I was going to so many closings every single week. I was like, there's a certain point that I can't do very many more deals because I'm spending 2 hours at a closing, 3 times, 4 times a week, right? Like that became a big problem for me, which is a good problem to have, I guess. But nonetheless, it never occurred to me that I could delegate that process, that I could actually have a conversation with them ahead of time and have someone represent me at the closing table. And that was a big deal for me. And so that, I wouldn't have got to 500 transactions if I tried to go to every closing. It would have been impossible, right? And so there's things that can be delegated. And again, I think I have a slide for it. So this right here is a write or downer. So if you're working 80-hour weeks, okay, you aren't making more money. You're getting paid less per hour. That's a gut punch for any of you that's working your tails off. And I know you are. Because in this business, it's easy to work 80-hour weeks. But if you're working 80-hour weeks, you're not making more money. You're getting paid less per hour. And you got to start getting pig-headed disciplined about your time and about how you invest your time, right? So 2 books, must-read books in this and that relate to this. I recommend every agent read. The first one is another Dan Kennedy book in his No BS series called Time Management for Entrepreneurs. That book resonated with my soul. I'm telling you, there's probably I know there's not a book that I've ever read that I had more highlighter marks than that book right there. Once I understood the value of my time and how it was being wasted and how I was the one allowing that to happen and took ownership of it, that was a game changer. Also, Chet Holmes, The Ultimate Sales Machine. Chapter 1, he talks about time management. He talks about pig-headed discipline and being pig-headed disciplined about your time. Like, don't let people rob you of your time. That's robbing you of money, right? And take control of your day. Take control of and focused on the priorities and doing the right things in the right order. So that was number 2. Number 3, is everybody having fun? Because I sure am.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
You go, Jay.
Awesome, Jay.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
yeah,
Love you guys. All right, so
Awesome.
here's the last one. Here's the last one.
Classic.
All right. So the last one. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. Love the love. I see all the little. I can see all y'all's little bubbles above all your heads when y'all make a comment. So that's pretty cool. I've never seen that before. All right. So they're strategic. All right. This is one you probably didn't see coming. But they actually make good decisions consistently in their business, more consistent than they probably used to, right? So like I used to make mistakes, and I remember Michael Reese, my good friend, business partner here at EXP, him and Al Stasik, and Mike came to me I can't remember what year it was, like year 2000, maybe 2001. And he comes to me and he sees me on a boat. This is the whole story how we started. And he sees me on a 35-foot fountain. I'm a lake guy. I like going to the lake. And he sees me on this big boat, and I'm like 23 years old. And he's like, "What do you do, man?" I said, "I sell real estate." We hadn't seen each other. We're both from the same hometown, and we hadn't seen each other in a while. He was managing a Bally's Fitness, and I said, "I sell real estate." Well, he asked me a million questions. Quits his job that day. He literally didn't go back to work. Got his real estate license that following week, and he was literally. I mean, he had already got the same website I had. He had asked me a million questions, and if somebody would have asked me what I had done to be successful in real estate, I would have been like, I don't know. I did a lot of stuff, man, that didn't work. I know that, right? Like you do so many things that don't work, and you keep getting up and keep trying again. But I couldn't have told you what I did to be successful because I did so many things that didn't work. I didn't even really keep track of it. I would never really thought about, hey, if somebody asked me that question. But Mike asked me that question, and then every day he would ask that question, hey, what do I do next? And I'd be like, no, don't do that. Nope, don't do this. Nope, hire that person. Yes, hire that person now, not later. don't hire this person, hire this role. Like all of those things that like I'd made mistakes and I had all these war wounds from, myself and growing my business. So like, it's okay to make mistakes and fail forward. But if you really copy success, like success is way more duplicatable if you can just not make those mistakes. And so the way we learn as we build these businesses, and you see everybody on stage that has these bigger successful businesses, they've actually learned how to be strategic and they've learned how to make better decisions. And all a strategy is a plan to execute a goal or solve a problem in a way that's the most efficient and effective use of available resources, right? So that's really, it's just like, what's going to be the right next step for you in your business? And do you have absolute clarity on what problem it is you're needing to solve, or what is the next step that you need to take and the next thing you need to do in your business? Because there are a lot of shiny objects, folks. You guys all know it, right? Like you probably have a list of all the things you could do somewhere, right? Of all these events you've been to, and like, where the heck do you start, right? Like, how do I get clear on that? So my goal in this last point is to teach you the process for how to get clear and do the right things in the right order. And if you do the right things in the right order often enough, example, make the right decisions of where to focus your time, effort, energy, resources, money, and you do that consistently, instead of making the mistakes, you're going to just grow exponentially faster. And it literally is exponential, especially if you focus on the listing side of the business. Things exponentially grow. I'm talking double, and some of you in this room have probably been there before, but I'm talking double and double and double, like go from 200 to 400 to 800, right? Like, it's unbelievable how much leverage you get if you're doing the right things in the right order. And so we know this: success is the sum result of the decisions you make daily. And you are today where you are because of the choices you made 6 months ago. So if you start making better decisions and focusing on the right things and doing the right things in the right order, you're going to have way more success. It's going to take you to success. You have to start making better decisions in your business. So then clarity starts with a simple question: where do you want to be in the next 5 years? And I say financially. Like, let's get clear on the number, right? Where do you want, how much money you got in the bank? How much money you got in savings? How much, what does that financial picture look like? And then it's, what do we do in the next 90 days to get there, right? We know where we want to go. We see on the horizon, the vision is 5 years, here's where I want to be. And here, now we know where I'm at, right? So in order for you to get, anywhere, you have to have, in GPS, you have to have a location that you're at and the location you're going. Right. And so it starts there. It's fundamentally, you have to start with that, and you have to think bigger down the road. What do you want this thing to look like in 5 years? Because as we all know, most of you, if you've been in the business very long, that, man, does 5 years go by fast in this business. Holy moly, years goes by fast. So like, you don't want to look up and be 10 years down the road and not have gotten clear about what you want your business to look like, because you'll certainly have a business that won't look like anything that you wanted it to look like had you taken the time to get clear. So I did create this download, a free report, a free clarity report. We created this document. It's a process. It's the most valuable thing you could ever do, is take the time to get clear on your business. We can't do the whole thing here. I would go through the whole book, but there's lots to it. So take the time to focus on your business, not just in your business. And you can download that and go through it, fill it out, whatever. Let me know the results. I love to hear stories of how that helps you, or whatever the case may be. But take the time to do that. Get clear and create a plan. And there are a couple more slides here that I want to cover, just as far as like, how do you determine like what's the number one thing you should do, right? Like, it's a hard thing to kind of understand. Well, what's the process for that? And in running several companies, I got very clear that, let me tell you something. If you don't get real clear on the things that you have to do and the things that you do that drive revenue and that are the most important, highest dollar producing activities, the $200, $300, $500,000 an hour work, if you don't get clear on that, don't hire a whole bunch of people, because they're not, what are you going to do? Tell them to do, right? In order to manage and lead people to be productive, you have to understand where you're at and where you're trying to go. And so when you start with the where am I now, right? Simple. And then the next step in the process is, we call it SWOT. It's called your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And so this is an important thing to just think through before you decide to do anything, right? Before you say yes to anything, slow down, have a process. You could do this monthly or quarterly, depending on what your comfort level is with it. but evaluate what are your strengths, what are the things that you're doing really well, what are the things that are in your wheelhouse, and then what are your weaknesses? Be real. What do you suck at, right? So I always use this example. If you decided to choose technology as something to implement with technology and you know that that's a weakness, and but it was something you needed a follow-up system for all the buyer leads you just started generating. And that's a weakness of yours. You need to be aware that you chose a priority that you suck at, and you're not going to be very good at getting it executed. So you want to be aware of your weaknesses, and you want to ultimately remove those weaknesses. That's where you hire people. You don't try to get better at your weaknesses. You focus on your strengths. Do more of what you're good at. Hire the other stuff for someone else. Let someone else do that stuff. And so be aware of what things you're weak at, okay? So this is just having an awareness before you make a decision. And then what are all the opportunities? And our mentor, Jay Abraham, used to always say, in every meeting we'd get together, he'd say, what's the goal? And we knew he was going to ask that question, so we always were prepared with the goal of the meeting. And then he would say, is that really the goal? And he'd always throw us off because we're like, is that really the goal? Is that the goal? Yeah, I think that's the goal. But oftentimes, what we think the goal is not. So I'll give you a quick example of the time that this was really relevant for us. We had 2 agents that left our team, and one of them moved to Oklahoma City, and the other one, I can't remember what she quit or what it was. But so they had a meeting, they wanted me to join, and I usually wasn't a part of these meetings. At this point, I was out of business, stepped out of the business and working in other companies we have. And they said, well, we want you to join us for this meeting. We have to, we think, the goal is to recruit 2 agents that produce X amount of deals per month or whatever. And I said, is that really the goal? And I was just messing with them because Jay Abraham always did it to me. So I was like, well, let me see what they say. And so, because I didn't know if it was the goal, it seemed like that was a logical goal. We just lost 2 agents. We want to replace them with agents that do the same amount of production. And I said, is that really the goal? And they said, I don't know. Well, they said, well, this is the amount of revenue that that we need to replace. And they told me the number. I said, well, what are all the ways? This is a writer down. What are all the ways to replace that revenue? And so, man, that unlocked a whole new level of thinking. We had, at that time, 70-something listings actively on the market. And instead, we shifted our time to focusing on getting our listings sold. I shifted the labor of every single person in the company on focusing on the getting listings sold instead of trying to hire agents. The difference in that was a game changer in that business. The difference was actually almost 20% pre-tax profit. It was actually 17% pre-tax profit from a negative 3% because we focused on the right activities. So I think I lost my Google Slides. I don't know if that means that they're about to jerk.
I stole them, Jay. I stole them. That's the hook, my man. If they need more Jay Kinder, they got to go find him.
All right, you got it, man. I'm
ready now. Give it an official closeout. Give it an official closeout, and then we'll thank you, and then we'll get everybody situated.
You got it, guys. Hey, hopefully this was valuable. Anything I can ever do for you guys, let me know. Reach out to me. I'm here to help. I love it. One big fire, EXP ready for life. Appreciate you guys. Have a rocking day.
Woo-hoo! Jay, thanks, buddy. Jay Kinder, amazing, man. Just want to say thank you. That was